Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It is November 19th, 2021, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. It's been an interesting little ride here. It looks like in the overnight session, I'm going to pull up my 10-minute here real quickly. The overnight session, we got this mega rally ever since the lows of yesterday. So, we came in yesterday. We got the sell-off at the open, just like that's pretty much what has happened for like a week and a half. You come in at the open, there's some type of sell-off, and then we eventually find support for a push back up to the top of the range. What ended up happening yesterday is we came up to test the highs of the overnight session, definitely broke the previous daily high, pulled back, and then launched out. And if you look at the pullback, it was pretty shallow. So we came up, we pulled back just in front, bounced like a point in front of the 38% retracement, and then just had this insane push to new all-time highs in the overnight session. And then right at midnight Pacific time, they failed and came all the way back down to 50% of the previous daily range. So yesterday's range from about 47.04 down to, 06.50 down to 46.68 here. We're right now at that 50% level. So important for the bulls to defend this area this morning. Ideally, for that bullish case, they will hold here and then attempt to retest these highs up here, keeping in mind that we have all these important levels above us that could hold the bulls down. And also the fact that it is very choppy in this general region here. So there are a lot of different important levels that make sense from a number of different perspectives, very close together in this region. So it just is what it is. Once we get above that 0650, yesterday's high, not too much structure in the market up above that. Once we get above that, as you can see, when we got above it in the overnight session, a nice launch up to 24 or 23 here. And then when we broke down below this 17 area, basically another quick chug back into the chop zone. So getting up above 0650 here, not much in between 0650 and the all-time high. We do have some eye levels up here, prediction points, and obviously that nice strong support right around 17. So that's what's above us there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the ultra high time frames and see what the charts are saying for this morning. Let's take a look. Of course, our quarterly is looking mega strong here as usual for about, I would say, for the last 3, 4, 5 months since we've been doing our trade room here. We come into the quarterly chart and there's no signs of exhaustion and everything just looks extremely strong. Our monthly here also looking very strong, with the caveat that we are getting what could potentially be a bearish exhaustion pattern off the highs. This is getting tricky here now because we're going to dial down to these other kind of higher time frames and we're starting to get some wonkiness up top. I just want you guys to keep in mind that this wonkiness up top could just be a little, it's an indication that there's a bit of exhaustion in the push, but that doesn't mean the push is over. And it's going to be hard here to really pinpoint things because, again, the monthly is showing signs of a bearish exhaustion pattern. The weekly gave an official exhaustion pattern off the candle that closed on November 5th. And then our daily is starting to print a potential bearish exhaustion pattern off the overnight high, which is our new all-time high. So now we have daily, weekly, and monthly all showing a very similar exhaustion pattern. The question is really going to be how strong are the bears going to be for the pullback here? And that's the thing. If we look at the weekly candles, we got a pullback, right? So from where the weekly bearish signal formed, the high was 1175. We pulled back to a low at 46.25. So we've got, an 85 point pullback. And now the bulls jumped right back in down at, remember, that 46.25 level that we talked about for a while now. Bounced out of there. We made new highs, but we also arguably made new highs here on RVR so far. So if this closes today, this weekly closes, and it looks like it looks right now, we're essentially starting to push out of this bearish signal that we got on RVI and kind of breaking through it. Unless if this weekly candle, which now does have a new high compared to the peak on RVI back here from the close of November 5th, we'll have a higher high on price. But if this RVI ends up closing lower than it is right now, we will have another bearish divergence on the weekly as well. So we're going to start to get kind of a double divergence kind of set up there for whatever that's worth. Like I said, this is more so probably just more exhaustion in this push, and we'll have to kind of refine or change and adapt to what the market does, because we're getting the bearish signals up top. So if we start to get the data, we start to see the market really start to get a pullback, we might want to have a little bit more weight on that bearish end, expecting a deeper pullback. So getting to the daily, like I said, we do have the current daily bar, remember, is going to have all day before it actually closes. We could continue to launch higher today. We could have some major sell-off today, and then the picture will look very different this afternoon. But right now, looking at where we are, we've got a new all-time high, a higher high, and we've got a lower high on RVI. So again, looking just like the weekly, pretty much just like the monthly here on our high time frames. Still looking at the quarterly, it looks like, you know, there's no stopping anything. But we do have this on some pretty significant time frames here. So for what it's worth, we want to kind of keep an eye on all this kind of stuff. Of course, the context of the market is it's very strong, and every time we pull back, the bulls jump right back in. So let's take a look at our 4-hour chart now. Pretty decent bullish divergence from the previous daily low, which again is what launched us out into, you know, these new all-time highs going into last night. So we did get a pretty good bullish divergence down there from a 4-hour perspective. And then off of the overnight high, off of our all-time high, there's a subsequent candle argument for a bearish divergence. Again, not my favorite type of divergence to really hang my hat on, but it is there. We got a higher high technically on the candles, but a lower high on RVI if you look at the RVI from the perspective of highs. So there is that argument there. I would say that the bullish divergence off the previous daily low is a nice clean bullish divergence that I would prefer to rely on. So I think there's a little bit more weight on that bullish signal off the lows than that subsequent candle argument. Again, we are pulling back and essentially holding 50% of the previous day, and I would even argue that's probably just about a 61.8 of the whole move. So this whole push up, including the overnight highs here, not just the high from yesterday, we are still holding right around that 61.8, 70% retracement level. So this is important here. Holding these lows here, these overnight lows, is good for the bulls, like I said a little bit earlier here. So let's dial down and see what these other time frames are saying. Our 60-minute also has an argument for the bulls off the lows. However, this 60-minute argument is just icky. It's really not something I like. So I don't think there's the most beautiful bullish argument from the lows, but we do have a nice, clean, bearish argument from the highs. So it's almost like the inverse of what we saw on the 4-hour. However, you know, for all intents and purposes, there's a bearish argument from the overnight high, bullish argument from the previous daily low, and a bullish argument from the from this overnight low as well on both time frames. Actually need to take that back. The 4 didn't show it from the overnight low, but from the previous daily low. So we have the arguments from both sides. Right now, the 60-minute, right off of, again, 61.8 retracement of the whole leg and 50% of previous daily price action, we're getting a bullish divergence on the 60-minute. And this is this is something I really like. And as you can see, we are attempting right now to push right now. So looking to these shorter time frames, here you go. Look at this, a pullback right into our eye level. Again, breaking it by maybe a point. And now here we're jumping out of here. And just for those out on YouTube, I want to kind of, again, toot our horn. We bounced off of an eye level, pushed up, pulled back into 50% of the previous day, essentially held it, pushed up, pulled back right into another eye level, and now we're continuing to chug. Anyway, I'm digressing. So looking pretty strong. Let's take a look at our intermediate time frames now. So that 60-minute has a nice strong bullish signal. Again, right in a level that really needs to hold for the bullish case. So let's look at the intermediate time frames here, and then we'll wrap everything up. We've got our 30-minute also agreeing with the bullish case off of the low. The previous daily low is similar to the 60-minute argument. If you go all the way back to the November 16th lows, we did make lower lows compared to that, but the RVI has pushed just a little bit higher. Actually, not the best, actually, now that I think about it. So now that I actually scrutinize that and look, it's actually not there. So the 30-minute also, not the strongest bullish case from the previous daily low there, but we do have that good bearish divergence from the all-time high, our overnight high up there, and then this nice bullish divergence from the overnight low. So as you can see, there actually might be a little bit more of an argument for the bears off the highs, but it's very mixed because from our 4-hour perspective, we actually had a more of a bullish argument from the previous daily low, and then somewhat of a tenuous argument for the bearish divergence off the overnight high. So it's kind of mixed. That's how it's been for a long time now, except for the obviously the pushes that we got all throughout October. But it's just what we're dealing with now. So another nice bullish divergence from the overnight low here on the 30-minute, and then the 10-minute as well. Maybe not from the overnight low, but from the pullback to test the overnight low, we did get a series of bullish divergences down off those lows. So pretty much an agreement there. We do have the bearish agreement off the all-time high, our overnight high. And then from that previous daily low, same thing on the 10-minute here. There's really kind of not really a great argument for the bulls from that low there. Outside of the fact that it's one of those extreme breakdowns in RVI and then it comes back up, right? So this was, I guess you could interpret that as kind of an extreme in RVI there. But really no strong bullish divergence argument off the low from the 10-minute. So this morning, it's really hard because, like I said, the 4-hour doesn't necessarily have the strongest signal up top, but then some of the other time frames do. And then from the lows, I think the 4-hour had a strong bullish signal from the low, but then all the other time frames, it was a very tenuous kind of argument. So it's kind of mixed on the top end and the bottom end, but there's a pretty straight agreement across the board from the 60-minute all the way down on the bullish arguments from the overnight low. So this is, I think, similar to our argument from yesterday that if we could hold the overnight low or the area that we pulled back to, which yesterday was like, I forget the number now. Let's just look back to yesterday. It was that, I believe, 96.25. If we could hold 96.25, then we were going to be bullish going into the open, except right at the open, what ended up happening was it broke right through our line in the sand there. So we were basically bearish bias once that happened, and especially once they broke through 50% of the previous day, which was 90 yesterday. And so we just started selling the crap out of that. But yesterday, we said if we could hold that 96, we had pretty much the 60-minute down to the short time frames giving us a bullish signal. Well, this morning, same exact deal. If we can hold this overnight low area, maybe the CP there at 83.50, then we could expect, again, the chug higher to test the all-time highs. Keep in mind this morning, if we can't get through 0375, which, hey, look at that. We just pushed right to 0375, got a failure. We've got an eye level at 47.04, and look at that, came right up into it and got a reaction. If we can't get through that 0375, then that's a bearish clue. So we really need to get through that. Not only is it an eye level that we've had on the chart, and not only is it 50% of the previous 4-hour, but if you just zoom back here, look at all the support we got back in Globex. Look at all the resistance we got from yesterday, pretty much from 47.04. So getting through that, from that perspective as well is important for any type of bullish case this morning. So what I would suggest is look for longs this morning, and if they can't get through 04 and they get through 87, start looking for some shorts, expecting a test of the previous daily low. Just keep in mind that we do have plenty of relevant levels above and below us that could end up holding the market up or holding the market down. There's no way to know going into the future which area is going to hold. We can just make arguments for which areas make the most sense. And I just want to point out here as well, there is, I think, almost a good case for why we found a lot of kind of support over in this area. And if you just zoom back to all this chop we had in the market here, and then look at where we notice we had all this chop in the market, right? Essentially between our 2i levels at 90, 50, and 85 there. We got out through that, came all the way up, and when we failed and came back down, sure enough, we're finding support right back in that area where we broke out of just in the overnight from yesterday. So that's where we're at this morning. Again, 0375, really important for the bulls to get through. And then we have some areas of contention above, and then getting below 687.25 and below the overnight low is not a great case for the bullish argument this morning. So I'll leave that for our viewers out in YouTube land, and we're going to jump down again to our short time frames here with and go over to our members section and start looking for some trade setups this morning, get a few other proprietary levels on the chart, and see if we can't kick some butt this morning. Yesterday, I'm proud to say, had you have taken our trade calls, you probably made over 50 points. I know I did, and I was being pretty safe with my exits. So have a great day to those in YouTube land, and we're going to jump to the members section now. Take care.